determining quorum. I'm having a little problems with my computer.
Not yet. We haven't met
Okay.
quorum yet. If everyone could give us a moment until all the board members join.
Again, we just want to apologize for the delay. Just waiting for a quorum before we can officially start this meeting. So I'll just ask that everyone be a little patient with us, please.
Chairman, one moment. We have a situation that keeps coming up, as you can see.
I'm glad you said that because I sure thought it was my computer.
All right, Mr. Chairman, let's make an attempt.
All right. And Denise, I see your hand and I understand you're having problems. Maybe you could turn, well, you can't even hear me so I can't tell you to turn your speaker on. It's in the chat. Okay, very good. All right. And I'll ask all members to please turn your cameras on as we call to order this scheduled meeting of the City of Orange Township Planning Board for today, September 17th, 2025. I'm going to ask if everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, have we met the sunshine law?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in accordance with Chapter 231, Section 5 of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this remote public meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Orange Township was filed with the municipal clerk of the City of Orange Township, posted on the city's bulletin board, designated for that purpose, and on all official city website has mailed to the city official newspaper as provided by ordinance.
And can you please take attendance?
Member Foston is absent. Member Anuké? Absent. Member Mobley?
Present.
Member Latour?
Present.
Council Montague? Is absent. Mayor Warren?
Present.
Vice Chair Jones?
Can you hear me? Here.
Yes. Okay. Chairman Holmes?
Present.
Quorum has been met.
Thank you. Is there any correspondence at this time?
There are no correspondence at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. And Denise Rodriguez, I'm going to ask that you put your hand down until we get to the public portion of this application. With that, I'm going to move the agenda. First case was a carried application for case number 24-11, Vida or Vida Capital LLC. That's 538-544 Nassau Street. And it's a preliminary and a final major site plan approval.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Jenkins is here on behalf of the applicant.
There he is. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Reggie Jenkins, Trank Isabel Siddiqui, and Shadanian on behalf of the applicant. It's good to see you as always. This is, as you alluded to, this is a carried hearing on the application. We first began this back in December before this board. And as the board will recall, this applicant is the contract purchaser of the subject properties. What they are proposing to do is the demolition of the 3 existing structures and the phased construction of 2 new 6-story mid-rise multifamily buildings in this site. The site is to be developed as one single project. When we gave our presentation the last time, we went substantially through both architectural designs as well as our engineering designs, and we heard a number of comments that had been made by the board and by the public, particularly with regard to things such as the setback and the massing of the buildings. We heard those questions, concerns. We went back and did substantial revisions to the project, which I think was well described in your board planner's report. The one thing that I won't go through all the details because I'll leave that to our professionals, but I think it's important to know that what we have done is we've improved the setbacks, amongst other things. We've reduced the overall number of the residential units to be supplied. The number of parking spaces has been reduced, but those are still remaining a compliant number across the 2 structures. We've increased the height of one of the buildings so that both of them are at 6 stories, and we'll discuss that. One thing that is going to be is integral to the entirety of this project, and we will describe it, is a bridge that's connecting the 2 sites, the 2 buildings. And that's both beneficial and integral for a couple of reasons. One, as we said, this is to be designed and utilized as a single project. The bridge actually helps to bridge the 2. It helps to bring them together. It helps to give better access to the residents with regard to the internal amenities. It helps the residents to access as necessary the parking areas across both units. That bridge is not going to be in any way an impediment to the street flow. It's going to be well above the street. It is going to be at a sufficient height to let emergency vehicles pass through, both police and fire. And so from an aesthetic point, we hope, and a practical point, we hope that you will find that acceptable. But also one reason it becomes particularly integral to the development of this site is, if you will recall, and we will go through it some more again this evening, we have, and indeed this whole area has, certain stormwater management constraints and problems. We believe that our site, the way it's designed, is not in any way going to exacerbate the stormwater conditions, and actually it may even serve to improve the stormwater in this particular area. But one reason the bridge is integral to the project is that it allows a necessary additional form of access, of an egress from the one building. Were there any type of flooding conditions at the time? And we have discussed that. We have approached the DEP with regard to that. DEP will obviously still have to weigh in and approve this, but it is what we believe is an efficient and creative way around a rather tricky stormwater condition that affects not only these sites, but indeed this whole entire area, and which is a major constraint on the developability of this area for other sites. But we believe in our case, this works. So, and one other thing that will be we acknowledge is that because that bridge spans over the public right of way, then were this board to approve it, obviously there would still be a required condition that we approach the municipality and the council to seek the appropriate air easement rights to allow that to exist. But overall, we believe that it is a workable solution. We hope that it would be approved and appreciated both by this board as well as the council. So, Mr. Chairman, oh, one last thing I will say by way of introduction. In addition to the preliminary and final site plan approval, we also are seeking to have the lots consolidated. Because there are a number of lots that make up and compose this project. And we have a number of bulk variances, which we will address and have also been outlined in your planner's report. The one thing I will say with regard to the planner's report, as well as the engineering report, we have seen and reviewed both of them. We have reviewed the suggested conditions of approval that would be imposed as conditions of approval. And generally speaking, we do not see any impediment with complying with those. So with that preamble aside, Mr. Chairman, I would like to bring back our first witness, Anthony D'Augusta.
That's fine.
Mr. D'Augusta, could you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board today is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. D'Augusta, can you reacquaint the board with your current position and professional background, please, in the area of architecture?
Sure. Anthony D'Augusta, partner and principal at Inglace Architecture and Engineering in Cedar Grove, New Jersey. I am a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I've overseen this project from its inception, and I was here before you a few months ago to discuss the previous design of the project.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, is he accepted?
Just for the record, and yes, you were here before. Just can you share with us a little bit of how many years you've been working and so forth, just a little bit, and to assure us that your credentials are official. And
Sure, my license is in good
Understanding.
standing. My license is in good standing. I've been practicing architecture in the field for 20 years. I've been licensed for the last 10, and I've appeared before numerous boards across the state and the region, including Orange and the many oranges.
All right. This board will accept Mr. D'Augusta as an expert in architecture, and Mr. D'Augusta, your testimony will be limited to that as an architect.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you. And if you would, Mr. D'Augusta, as the designer of and presenter of the preparation of the plans, can you just give us a brief background as to what we had before, and then transition to the changes that have been implemented particularly in regard to and in response to the comments we received from this board?
I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to supplement my ramblings with some of the visuals. It's just I'm unable to share the screen at the moment. So while I start discussing it, I'll get ready to share that screen once it's available to me. But as
Anthony, no, please.
right now, yep,
Yes.
there we go. Okay, can we see the screen?
It's starting, nothing yet. There it is.
Okay. All right. So I think Mr. Jenkins's intro summarized a great deal of the project and the transitions we've made from our previous presentation. I think the salient points here are we've had to react to both the general board's concerns, the public's concerns, as well as a flood condition concern that we were evaluating through the design of this project. And fortunately for us, we feel that we were able to accomplish solutions for all of those items. In general, there was concern about the general bulk of the building as it approached the street frontage along Jefferson. And from a planning standpoint, and as it adhered or it didn't meet the setback requirements as part of the redevelopment plans requirements, we were able to sort of pinch and pull a bit on the overall volume of the building, and achieve those setbacks along both Nassau Street and Jefferson Streets. Both of those avenues were concerns from both the public and your professional planners review. Additionally, there was concern about the general massing and how that building sort of interacted or imposed itself on the street frontage on Jefferson. We've reconfigured the layout of the building, which I'll get to in a moment, to be a little bit more accommodating to the street frontage or the street experience along Jefferson. And the massing there, which was a bit more vertical, has been set back a bit in a good portion of the project to allow for a bit more light and air to occupy that now a bit more open avenue. And lastly, in reviewing the conditions per the DEP, it was discovered that this project had a bit of a challenge to overcome in the sense that a good portion of the site and a good portion of the redevelopment plan in general, for that matter, exists in a flood zone that be a bit more difficult if it were not, if impossible to accommodate without linking these two buildings. It'll be clearer once I walk through, but as an overview, the necessity to link these two buildings is something that we'll need to do, mostly to satisfy the DB's concerns about flooding in the area. So by linking these two buildings, we satisfy that. We also provide a bit more homogeny between the two buildings. We have a communication between these two buildings that doesn't necessarily require a resident to leave the building or one building to join the other. So there's a shared amenity experience between the two buildings as well. So we feel overall another stab at this and review at the drawing board allowed us to improve the overall project. The zoning analysis on the screen identifies the variances that have been outlined in your planner's review and your engineering review. I won't belabor them. In general, as Reggie testified a bit earlier, we have reduced the overall building height. We have reduced the overall density of the project, and we have reduced the overall parking. But as a result, the parking meets the overall requirement due to the reduced density on site. We are still occupying the ground floors of the building with parking. On site 2, we're using 2 levels, and in site B, we're using 1 level. To reorient everyone, Jefferson Street runs in the Y direction here, sort of north-south on the page. Nassau is running left-right in the X direction. Site A is the larger site, as we're calling it. That has frontages along Nassau, Jefferson, and the tail end of Morrow. And then site B occupies the corner of Nassau and Jefferson just adjacent to site A. I'm going to jump towards the ground floor plan, sheet A1.10.
And
This
and
tells
if
a bit of this.
excuse me, I'm sorry, and if I may,
Sure.
just for the record, All the plans that you were referring to are, are not anything new. These have already been previously submitted to the board. Uh, again, these are in the package. However, if there's anything that is different from what has been submitted previously, obviously, Mr. Chairman, we will call that out and mark that as a separate exhibit. I'm sorry, Anthony, please continue.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. As you can see here, the frontages that had previously occupied our design had landed on the property line, thus providing zero setback along Nassau and zero setback along Jefferson. We've pulled the building inwards to provide a landscaping buffer on both of those frontages. In addition to, we've adjusted the access point to the parking garage on Site B, which previously had access off of Jefferson, now has access off of high ground from Nassau. So for everyone's edification, the street frontage, Nassau Street runs at a low point towards the left-hand portion of the drive aisle of Site A and ramps up as it approaches the railroad tracks towards the right-hand portion of the screen. So for everyone's edification, high ground for this project is here. That'll be important as I explain why the bridge is a necessary component of the project. But in general, what we're seeing is two separate projects at the ground floor with a bridge linking them above. By and large, the programmatic components of the ground floor Site B don't differ much than what they were previously. We have utility space, we have parking, we have a lobby, we have an elevator, and we have some compactor and trash space. What is important of note is the reconfiguration of the stairs, which allows both buildings, by virtue of the bridge linking them, to discharge at high ground. So at this sort of northeast corner of the screen, the stair discharges out at the highest portion of the site, at the highest elevation of the site, I should say. And this allows us to evacuate both buildings in a flooding event per DEP requirement. At Site A, again, similar to our previous application, we are occupying the ground floor with surface parking or enclosed parking, I should say. But we have here, as we did at Building B, pulled in the building off of the property line to provide a bit of landscaping buffer on both street frontages. Both Nassau and Jefferson see a 5-foot setback to house some landscaping and shrubbery. And as you can see, there's a bit of a meandering ramp to get us to an elevated lobby elevation. There's stairs that front Nassau Street, and there's another set of stairs that front Jefferson, as well as the ADA ramp that gets us up to the lobby elevation. The building itself, or the garage itself, is accessed off the northwest corner portion of the property. This again has a ramp structure that brings us to a higher ground because we couldn't land our parking garage in the floodplain. So at this level, you're looking at 58 parking spaces that occupy generally the majority of the floor plate on this level. And the setbacks along some of the other portions of the site are either 0 or less than 5. That is one of the relief requirements we're seeking tonight. But in general, the feedback that we had been given was that the most important exposures, both on Nassau and Jefferson, were addressed, and we feel like we adequately have done so by pulling the building off of the property line. As we move to the next floor, which is the second floor, at Site B, that floor plate has now turned to residential. Previously, this floor was a second level of parking and was served by a vehicular elevator. We've eliminated that and now readjusted the program here to be strictly residential use. And what you see now is the bridge that's linking both buildings. This, again, happening at the second floor, which would communicate with a stair that discharges out of the ground. But as it makes its way over Jefferson Street, communicating with the lobby and some amenity space at Building A, it's linking the same vertical transportation elements, the stairs and elevator, as it does on the Building B portion of the site, as with A. On the second level of this building, at Site A, again, the lion's share of the program here is parking, 61 spaces here with a bit of tandem parking spaces that are not tabulated as part of our calculation, but in general, we're sort of overflow parking. But again, 61 parking spaces here. And the floor plate over at building B is 8 units per floor. On the third floor, we're seeing the new configuration of the floor plate of building A. Building B stays generally the same, 9 units per floor. You're seeing the roof of the bridge below. The bridge is only 1 story, linking the second floor of the buildings. But at building A, what you're seeing is now a U-shaped building facing Jefferson Street, whereas previously the volume and shape of the building had sort of had the long portion of the C shape running along the property line along Jefferson. By mirroring this, we create a bit more light and air opportunity to feed Jefferson Street. The third floor here also provides an opportunity for an amenity. At this level, we're feeding the residential units that front that area, as well as a common lounge area for the residents that could be shared by both buildings. Again, this lounge is accessible from the third floor, so anybody in building B could simply go down to the second floor bridge, walk across, and come on over to the lounge. Again, a shared amenity experience is something that we felt was a positive overall. And then on the typical floor plan, which is floors 4 through 6, you're seeing that maintaining the C shape facing Jefferson Street. Obviously, that terrace space is now sunken at the highest level at the third floor. And then the building B double-loaded corridor remains the same. The shape of the building doesn't change all too much. Again, a point to be taken away here is that we're maintaining that setback along Jefferson and Nassau at 5 feet for all 6 stories. So there's no encroachment into the setback, nor is there encroachment towards the right of way. Again, we're pulling that building off of the property line to satisfy the general concern and also achieve a bit of a better experience along Nassau and Jefferson. Now, the floor plates at the highest levels are 23 units per floor and 9 units per floor. And then very briefly, the uppermost floor plan is the roof plan. You're seeing some low-lying mechanicals. Again, as mentioned previously in our original proposal here, the mechanical systems here are very traditional and very low-lying. So there aren't going to be needs to screen such mechanical systems. They'll be below the parapet and not visible from the street. Street and sheet A200 tells most of the story here. Focus on the lower image, which is the Nassau Street elevation. You're facing Jefferson Street, sort of centered to the page. The railroad trestle is towards the left-hand side, and you can see how the topography sort of drops off. The high ground on the portion of the site is again at that discharge point at building B. We're seeing that sort of runoff down towards building A. And what you might want to focus on is the 22-foot clearance we have along Jefferson Street to allow all emergency vehicles to still access Jefferson Street without issue and provide the necessary resources needed for the neighborhood. So no compromise there. The general design aesthetic matches what was a collaborative effort with the municipality early on in this project, and the feedback was applied generally through all frontages of the building. So there's no difference in terms of material or design sense along the Nassau nor Jefferson frontages. They're identical in that regard. And lastly, there was an opportunity at the sort of corner of the building of building A near our ramp structure to inject some additional shrubbery and landscaping. So you're seeing is it a planter box occupying that corner condition to really bring a bit more vegetation to the ground floor. Our landscape plans we could briefly run through, but in general, we're using that 5-foot setback as a planting bed for the perimeter of our building to give a little bit more life to what is otherwise occupied by a good deal of garage space, the lower levels, which we hope were brightened by some attractive architecture on the upper floors. I think that does it for me, Reg.
Yeah, just one thing if you could touch on with regard to the variances that are being sought. And again, you've mentioned that we have improved the setback conditions. We still have some, we still have building coverage uh, uh, deviations. Am I correct that some of the reason for that design and the reason for that coverage has to do with the parking we are providing, and particularly the sufficiency of the parking that we're providing?
Indeed, to maximize the parking on site and still satisfy the general DEP conditions, as well as achieve the frontage setbacks that were dictated in the redevelopment plan, sort of needed to sort of tighten the belt on the project. So in doing so, we were able to accomplish what we felt were the more primary concerns along the active street frontages. But what it did was sort of push us towards the lot lines at the other frontages where adjacent property lines are less visible, but we do need relief on those frontages.
Okay. And of course, in addition to the parking, this applicant is providing, decently sized livable apartments.
Certainly.
Yeah, which in your opinion, as an architect, would contribute to the desirability and livability of this project.
Certainly, I think when you consider its proximity to mass transportation, units like these identified in the square footage table here are very competitive. The square footages are not off from our major competition throughout the city and region. These are all pretty spot on.
And just one last thing in terms of the design itself, setbacks generally, would you agree that this is, overall consistent with the area in terms of where other buildings are placed in relation to property lines, particularly along
Yes, I
the
would. I think, as I mentioned earlier in my testimony, the redevelopment plan itself generally exists in a pretty challenging portion of the town, and by doing so, I think all projects seeking approval have to have been creative to solve the nuances in the redevelopment plan and the field conditions, and I think here is no different than many of the other opportunities elsewhere in the redevelopment plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions for Mr. D'Augusta.
All right, Mr. DeGussa, thank you for your testimony. Open it to the board members. Are there any questions from any board member for Mr. DeGusta?
I may, Chair.
Member Latour?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Diagazo, thank you for your testimony. I think in the inception you had mentioned that the reason the two buildings are connected is to avoid or to be compliant with some DEP flood mitigation. Can you elaborate on that? I don't know if that's something under your purview or not.
Sure, I can elaborate on it just for a higher level, and
Okay.
if need be, we need to get more granular, our engineers involved. But in general, I'll explain sort of the general conditions of the site.
Okay.
The topographic conditions here dictate our reaction and subsequent proposed bridge to link the two buildings. Again, this is a site plan identifying some of the topography. As you can see, and anyone that's driven along Nassau recognizes that it sort of ramps up pretty quickly as you approach the train trestle. At its lowest point, it's sort of right smack dab in the middle of a flood condition, as dictated by the DEP flood maps. And through the DEP, the general consensus is that in a flood event, it's difficult to get emergency vehicles in this general area in the worst case, 100 or 500-year storm. So the solution to evacuating at least the residents, and maybe not necessarily vehicles or other portions or components of the project, but most importantly, life safety for the residents of the building, is to make sure that we provide a means for both buildings to evacuate to high ground. So as I mentioned earlier, high ground exists over here. Having someone discharge sort of on Nassau and having to walk up what would otherwise be potentially an inundated street corner at the corner of Nassau and Jefferson The solution here is to allow them to make their way over to building B and then make their way through the common corridor and out to high ground near the train trestle above the floodwaters.
But overall, thank you for that explanation. But overall, on a day-to-day, well, what seems to be a little bit more heavier rain than typical lately, it should be able to accommodate typical or non-typical rain that we've been having recently.
Yes, we've accounted for that. Our stormwater calculations have accounted for the general requirements for containing water on site and how that's set back into the municipal system. Yes.
All right, thank you. That's it, Chair. That's all, Chair.
All right, thank you, Member Latour. Any other questions for Mr. DeAgosta? All right, seeing none, we thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I would ask that our engineer, Mr. El Musi, be recognized. There is.
You raise your right hand.
Good evening, board members.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give tonight before the board of the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. El Musi, can you provide the board with your current position, professional background, and reminding them that you have appeared previously before this board, including with the inception of this application?
Absolutely. So my name is Fiam Musi. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, New York, and a couple other states. My license is in good standing in the state of New Jersey. I have a bachelor's in civil engineering from Portland State University, but I've since relocated to New Jersey, and I've been licensed since 2018. I have appeared in front of this board and numerous other boards throughout the states, and I have been the project engineers from the inception of this project. It's good to be back.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I assume he's acceptable?
Yes,
this-
this board will accept Mr. El Musi as an expert in engineering. And Mr. El Musi, I'm sorry, your testimony will be limited to that as an engineer.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to start and proceed in the exact way you did before with regard to this application from an engineering standpoint, please.
Absolutely. So, Giselle, do you mind if I can share my screen, please?
I know, Sophie.
Perfect. Thank you. So I will try to avoid repeating what Anthony has already touched upon, but I would like to start by stressing just the complexity of this site. South Jefferson and Nassau is west of South Jefferson. The site is relatively flat. However, east of this site, we do have a significant grade change, and I wanted to specifically go to site to C100, sheet C100, to just kind of start by explaining where the floodplain is and what the FEMA floodplain is defined as. So as you can see from this plan, I'm just confirming that everybody can see my plan. Perfect. So
Yes.
the floodplain is essentially at elevation 170 as it crosses our site, and we need to be at least 3 feet above that floodplain elevation. And that I wanted to start there before kind of circling back to the rest of the site, because I think that's an important feature as to how we got to both the first iteration of this project, but also the second iteration of this project, and more specifically, the need to connect these two buildings together. And as you can tell, everything west of this flood line is all within the floodplain. So any building, any development that is not contained to the east of this flood line just will not meet DEP regulations in terms of providing a means of egress during a flood event that is above the floodplain. And so I will go through some of the sheets that we have within our site plans, but this is just a demolition site plan. This used to be the Libretti's restaurant, as well as their parking area, and a couple other structures that are getting demolished and the asphalt getting removed to allow for this development. And I'll move on to the dimensional site plan, sheet C120. We'll start by the corner of Nassau and South Jefferson. So as Anthony kind of mentioned, we're proposing a exterior ramp to this building. That is a component both required from a DEP regulation. The means of egress out of this building needs to be completely contained outside of the structure, but also a nice added feature with both the ramp and the stairs on the outside, allowing for a full building setback. As Anthony has mentioned, the ability to enhance this corner both as a setback, but also provide some landscaping and some shrubbery to that corner. Site A, which is the site on the west of the sheet and west on plan, is essentially about 0.8 acres. It is going to be the site for the proposed 91 units. It is also going to be proposing a 2-level parking area. So in order for us to make this both work from a design perspective and also meeting DEP regulations specific to the flood hazard requirements, all parking within a flood zone needs to be at least a foot above the floodplain elevation. And we were able to achieve that simply by adding this ramp at the end of the property on Nassau Street, where you can see that we're rising pretty rapidly over close to about 100 feet from the street frontage all the way up to what we're going to consider the ground floor. Ground floor is going to be elevated, and therefore both vehicles as well as pedestrians and residents will be immune from any potential flooding around both the sites and just in general. We are proposing a total of 119 parking stalls, as well as an additional 15 tandem stalls. Anthony's kind of alluded to that component, and so I won't go back on that point. But essentially, we are providing the EV parking both on this floor and the next floor, which I'll show on the next sheet, as well as the required ADA parking. We are proposing 4 compact stalls at the corner of the building. This is just a reflection of the fact that this is not a square site or a rectangular site. And so as we kind of get to this choke point at the end, these stalls have to be reduced to 16 foot long in order to allow us to maintain that parking. We were looking to make sure that we maintain the 1-to-1 ratio for unit to parking, and so utilizing these compact spots is important. The building going back out towards the ramp does continue from the ground floor, from the new ground floor up to the second floor, and that's where you see this first portion of the ramp, and I'll show the remainder on the following page. Under the ramp is where we're proposing our storm vaults. I will go into a little bit more detail in terms of that once I get to the drainage plan, but the intent again is to show that we're raising our stormwater management system above ground. We're used to presenting, generally engineers will start with providing a system that tends to be below the ground floor slab, either in a basement or below, just simply below grade in some sort of HDPE pipes. Here we had to revert to a storm vault so that all of the stormwater management could be above the floodplain. Again, to kind of reinforce Anthony's points that we're providing a system that will essentially allow storage to not contribute during both heavy rain, but also during flood events, as that will be captured above ground. I'm going to flip over to C121 just to show the second floor parking area, and then I'll go back to the smaller site B. On this level, this is a continuation of the ramp that we saw on the floor below. So that ramp turns and brings you up to the second floor parking. Similarly here, we have additional EV or spaces to be EV ready within 5 to 10 years of the building based on building demand, but we will prepare these sites to always be ready for the EV chargers. Similarly, as the floor below, we have these four compact stalls over here, but overall we're proposing 119 stalls, all regular stalls. And then the main drive aisle is going to be 24 feet wide, but the interior ones are going to be 22 feet. As I get to the northeast corner of the property. Anthony kind of already discussed the amenity spaces that we're proposing that'll be shared between the two buildings. But really, the key highlight here is obviously this bridge. The bridge is a key component to allow this project to exist, and the main reason why is simply that all the residents on Site A will have the opportunity to use this bridge during a flood event to essentially traverse South Jefferson Street, enter Building B, and then use the means of egress in Site B to safely discharge out onto Nassau Street on high ground. Without this bridge, we would not be able to propose any sort of development due to the fact that this entire property and everything adjacent to it is within a flood zone. And so I'm going to circle back to sheet C120 to now discuss site B. On this side, originally the first iteration of this project showed the parking entry from South Jefferson. However, after reviewing, working with the DEP and kind of taking into account all of the flood concerns, we thought it would be best to relocate the parking entry to high ground. So this parking entry is specifically located to be, as you had seen on C100, to be above the floodplain line. And that allows for all these vehicles to be parked above the floodplain and essentially ensure that they stay dry even during a storm event. Similarly, we are proposing a storm vault for the same logic as Site A. And like we mentioned, we have some utilities on the ground floor, but other than that, really the main focus here is placing the lobby and the stairs as close as possible to the train bridge, which is essentially the high point on both these sites, but also the only point where it is safe to egress during a flood event. I'm going to take this opportunity to just mention that this bridge, and I'll show it on the next sheet, which is our drainage and grading plan, is about 27 feet above ground. So if there's any concerns about vehicle or traffic below, I just wanted to reiterate that this bridge is significantly higher than any potential vehicle that would be traveling through Jefferson Street. And I just want to quickly go over the grading. Again, this is really an opportunity to kind of explain the engineering behind all this madness. The existing street grade, specifically around Site A, goes from about 162 to this corner being about 163, 164, where the flood elevation is closer to 170, 171. So we're about 8 feet below the floodplain. We're not assuming that the site will flood a full 8 feet, but we are supposed to design to that design standard, which is why the ground floor in its entirety is set at elevation 176. The only caveat being the transformer room, and that needed to be at grade to allow utility access directly from the street. Otherwise, the entire site, the vaults, the parking, and everything with it is at a higher elevation. As I described, the storm vault is above grade. It is running pretty shallow below the ground floor slab, and then we did propose a manhole where this is where we see the significant drop from elevation 167 to 153, which allows us to connect to an existing 7-foot brick storm pipe running down South Jefferson. So the intent here is that we're providing a storm water management system that's significantly above any potential for flooding, but also its connection to the storm will not allow it to backflow back into our sites. It would take a significant amount of pressure to create such an event. Exact same logic is applied to the storm system on Site B. It's set at elevation 174.33. That is again 3 feet above, a minimum 3 feet above the floodplain elevation, and that essentially ensures that this parking will stay dry during the worst case storm events. As I mentioned earlier, there's a significant slope from Nassau and Jefferson to the corner of our property. This is what allows us at elevation 176 to essentially discharge out of this site and be able to walk out straight to grade and to a evacuation zone or a safe zone away from any potential flood events. This has been months and back and forth with the DEP, coming up with a design, doing a pre-application meeting with them to ensure that what we're proposing here as a conceptual design will meet the DEP regulations. There's still some details to be worked out. We anticipate that's going to take some time to work out the DEP, but they've seen this plan. They understand the design intent here. They've seen the bridge, and they do concur that the bridge approach, again, it's our design. The DP does not comment on necessarily providing design comments, but they do understand that the need for the bridge and that it does meet the DP requirements in terms of pedestrian egress out of the site. This is an urban development, and as an urban development, the main focus is pedestrian exit. So anybody that has a vehicle on site A during a significant flood event would not necessarily be able to access their vehicle to exit the site if the entirety of both Nassau and Jefferson are fully flooded. But this is really to allow for emergency evacuation and then emergency services to reach the residents, and that's the key component to this bridge structure. This is the second floor plan. From a grading perspective, like I mentioned, street grade on South Jefferson is around 163. We're proposing the second floor elevation at 190. That's where the 26 feet or 27 feet of a grade difference comes from. These are more technical drawings. These are just drainage maps. This is something that we need to provide to meet the engineering design. I am going to skip over these, but essentially we're proposing roof capture of the majority of this site, and then sending all of that clean roof runoff into our storm system. This is solar erosion. From a lighting perspective, similarly, what we're proposing here is obviously ceiling mounted lights within the parking structure. They're going to meet both the ordinance and all requirements. And then on the outside, what we're proposing are wall sconces to support the existing street lights that are essentially going to light the landscaping, but also the sidewalks in front of our properties on both sides of this project. Similar, you can see the light fixtures here. These are wall mounted, and then this is for the ceiling mounted ones within the parking. Similarly, this is second floor within the garage, ceiling mounted lights. And then these are some of the specifications of these light fixtures. Again, we're more than happy to work with both the board professionals should they want to see any sort of different light fixtures, but they will all meet the light requirements. And then finally, getting into the traffic site plan, what we're really showing here is that both our means of egress for the vehicles are going to meet the site. We're providing the site triangle to show that we are meeting the site travel requirements, which is over 280 feet on both sides. These vehicles, what we're proposing here is going to be a pedestrian warning system. So any vehicle coming in or out as it gets closer to the egress of the building, there'll be a shining lights as well as a loud audio warning for any pedestrian as well as the vehicles to ensure that there's a pedestrian safety crossing these driveways. And that is essentially it with my presentation.
Thank you. And I know we've really tried, and I didn't do anything. You did a great job in terms of answering, I think, a number of the board's engineers' requests and comments. The one thing, if you could just touch upon and elaborate on, is that he has noted that some of the parking sizes would require a waiver. If you could just speak to that, and then in your professional opinion, for the size of any of the spaces that are quote unquote undersized, from an engineering standpoint, do you see that as being problematic in any way?
Based on the size and the amount of parking provided here, we're only proposing 4 compact stalls on per floor on site A. Again, I mentioned it is because the building is not rectangular, and so as we get to this pinch point, these stalls have to get smaller in order to fit within this development. That being said, 8 stalls out of 119 that will be compact, and these parking stalls will be assigned. So the ability to confirm that a compact vehicle and the resident that will be using that compact stall will have the compact vehicle is pretty much insured, as well as should not be a problem in terms of just turning radius in and out of these parking stalls.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further direct questions of Mr. Almusi. I imagine, again, that your engineer may have some questions, so I will defer to him to lead us through anything that he feels are outstanding. However, I will say that I believe we have made a Herculean effort to address any of the engineering questions, concerns, requests that have been raised to this point.
Okay, for now, we will open it up to any board member that has any questions for Mr. Almusi.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Member Mobley?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Almusi.
Good evening.
In the design, did you did you look at the Superstorm Sandy and Irene and look at how, though, if the building were there when those storms occurred, how would the building have been impacted?
So we not necessarily looked at those specific hurricane events, but the DEP's regulations are essentially have been updated to a higher standard due to those superstorm events, and I believe that that is why we're seeing such a high elevation specifically to this area. Right now, the elevation to the existing elevation is around 162, 163 at the corner of Nassau and Jefferson, while the floodplain is assumed to be up to 7 feet higher. So this whole site during those flood events would have most likely been fully flooded, and we're talking several feet of flooding, both because of the topography around the site that makes this more of a valley, and so it captures a significant amount of water, but also because upstream of South Jefferson there is a culvert that once that culvert is overwhelmed, she flows out onto Jefferson, and that kind of rolls right through South Jefferson and right through this site. And so the reality is, had this building been up during those events and designed properly, which is the full anticipation of this project, it would be designed to be flood resistant, which essentially means that the building itself will resist the flood pressures and would also allow the residents a means to exit both their building, but also the whole zone, the whole flooding area. So the ability to walk onto Nassau streets and be serviced by emergency crew members would have been definitely possible here. While this site right now, should we have built site A or any other site that currently exists there during this flood event, you're either trapped within your own development or you've left your property prior to this storm event. So these buildings have definitely these storm events in mind. They were significantly redesigned to address those exact concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Almusi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're
Absolutely,
welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board member?
If I may, Chair.
Member Latour?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Almusi. I'm not sure if this is for you or Mr. D'Augusta. Just to clarify, the bridge in the event of an emergency, just to clarify the size of it, and I believe in Exhibit C120, it shows that it is ADA compliant, so not only for residents 121s. Yeah, so it is ADA compliant and it would be able to accommodate in the event of emergency, both mechanical and for emergency services and pedestrians to travel in either way in the event of emergency.
That's a very good point, and thank you for pointing to it. Absolutely. So I should have mentioned we are proposing both steps to this bridge, but also an ADA ramp that'll be fully ADA compliant. We haven't finalized the exact width of the bridge, but it has to meet a minimum based on the anticipated occupancy of the number of residents in site A traveling to site B. So both of those components have been taken into account, and the design you're looking at is a reflection of ensuring that whether you're you're in need of the handicapped ramp or not, you will be able to get to safety. Similarly, we have both the stair tower, but also the elevator at this corner of the building, specifically to address that concern and to allow any person from site A who travel any ADA person traveling from site A to site B to essentially get into the elevator to the lobby of site B that is above the floodplain, and be able to use the ADA ramp up and get to again this evacuation area.
Yeah, just keep in mind, we're thinking worst case scenarios that the width should be able to accommodate multiple forms of transportation or pedestrian traffic, and emergency services possibly at the same time.
Absolutely, and I think that we will address that, but that is also a DEP requirement. So we have been working with them on getting that, and that is definitely one of their components is occupancy, but also access for emergency services.
Thank you, Mr. Almusi. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. To Member Latour's point, Mr. Almusi, should there be an emergency in one building and well, let's say building A, and you have a lot of tenants running to building B, the capacity of that tunnel, I mean, that bridge, I'm sorry. Have you considered that? Take that in consideration.
Absolutely. I have to highlight one thing that I don't know if I've conveyed it properly. The bridge is a means of egress for purely a flood event. The site A does as a standalone building does meet all the emergency requirements, both in terms of ADA compliance for stretchers within the elevator, access for emergency services, as well as if there was a fire at this building, the means of egress do meet as a standalone. Specifically, the bridge and access from site A to site B is for flood events. And yes, we did take into account both occupancy as well as emergency services, and that's kind of why the bridge is as wide as it looks right now. It's about 8 foot wide, and that both those components have been taken into account.
Thank you.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, Member Latour.
Okay, I'm a little confused now. Thank you, Chair. But because you said the bridge initially was also a means to building A and B to share amenities, not just
That is correct.
Okay.
But in terms of, I was just specifically talking to the means of egress comments. So building A has its own means of egress. It is the bridge is both for amenity usage. That's more an architectural request. But in terms of means of egress, that design component came from the fact that we needed to provide a means of egress from site A to site B to meet the flood requirements.
Okay. So it has a day-to-day function, but also doubles as a flood and a mitigation plan as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for hitting that point as well.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Member Latour. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Almusi.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Almusi?
One more, Mr. Chair.
Member Mobley.
Mr. Almusi, if the plan tonight is approved by this board, will you need to go back to DEP for approval?
We do. So what we've done so far is a pre-application a meeting in which we came up with this design, made sure that the design intent are met, but we do need to get a flood hazard application individual permits for residential building, and that is a requirement. However, we believe that what we've shown you tonight is what is going to get approved. What they're looking for is a full application package. It's about 200 pages that is more technical than a change in aesthetic or design.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Almusi? All right. Seeing none. Mr. Almusi, we thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
You're still muted, Mr. Jenkins, Attorney Jenkins. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, I was just
Yeah.
clicking. So those are our only two witnesses that we are presenting this evening.
All right. Then with that, rock, paper, scissors, Mr. Cahalan, Hazel. Mr. Cahalan, can we hear from you? since we're talking about stormwater and
Certainly. Good
emergency.
evening, everyone.
Great.
Do you swear
The sexy
affirm the
stuff.
testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. As Attorney Jenkins and his professionals noted, they did do a bang-up job covering a great number of all the items in my 11-page report. Sorry, you guys had to read all that, but I get to read I'm going to say 280-page stormwater report for you, so that feels like a fair trade. One just item of clarification I'd like to bring up regarding the parking stall size design waiver. That is in there as the city code requires a 9-foot wide and 180 square foot area size. Commonly, we refer to as 9 by 20. The standard sizes presented here are 9 by 18. And I will say that is consistent with the Residential Site Improvement Standards, RSIS, and is something that has been granted by this board previously. And the only other item I'd reinforce, as the applicant has agreed to it, would be should you vote to approve this application, any of the other approvals noted, such as from NJDEP, the city council, what have you, would be conditional here. So that's about all I have directly, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Are there any questions from any board members for Mr. Lane? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Hazel? Mr. Attorney Hawkins?
My apologies. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board tonight is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Not sure why my hand went up, but anyway. Yeah, I'm not going to belabor. I know there's a lot of testimony of the changes that were made and so provided by the applicant. And I must say, I did mention this in my report, but it's, I do go hard on applicants sometimes when there's stuff that I don't think makes for a good application, or it's deficient in areas there where I think they can do better. And I have to commend this applicant that they have listened. And this, in my opinion, is a much improved application. I know that a lot of this, a great deal of this, is being brought about by the stormwater conditions, and so. But I think also it bodes well for the sustainability, if you will, of the projects, that they're being built with the flooding and the potential flooding and so in mind, so that they're kind of a little ahead of the storm, so to speak. I particularly like the inclusion of the setbacks on the street frontages and the proposed installation of landscaping there. I think it will help to break up some of the hardscape with the building facades and things of that sort. And I think it will make for a very much improved pedestrian experience. This area is in relatively close proximity to the train station, and I expect that there's going to be quite a few people walking past it, not just from this project, but from other projects in the area. And I think having a wonderful pedestrian environment is a big plus. Beyond that, as I mentioned in my report, a couple of the deviations that were required before have been improved upon, and some of them have been eliminated, like the setbacks on the street frontages. The one deviation that has been introduced with these changes is the building height, which, as you heard from the testimony, is necessary for the flooding, and so potential area of flooding that may occur in this area. So I think that basically justifies it. Other than that, again, you have much more detail in my report, but I just want to just commend the applicant for making the changes, listening to the board and to the professionals about their concerns and making an effort to address them. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel. Are there any questions from any board member? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to open public portion of this application.
Motion.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Jones. Is there a second? Second from Member Mobley. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Is there anyone that opposes opening the public portion of this application? Seeing none, public portion is now open. If there's anyone that would like to speak to this application, please turn on your cameras, state your name, your address, and any concerns, questions that you may have. And I see first up, Miss Denise Rodriguez, been patiently waiting.
Yes, patiently waiting. I'm Alicia. Do I have to give my address?
Yes, please.
487 Mountain View Ave. And then quick question, am I allowed to ask to speak again later on general topic, or this would just be the only chance we have?
This is the public portion.
Okay, cool. So I'm concerned about the new building in Mountain View and Scotland Road. Let me say these homes were already sold before I bought my property 6 years ago. I don't know when they were sold exactly, but it doesn't seem to fit the look or style of the historic block, especially with the plastic metal siding and the boxy siding that they just applied. Nothing about that historical.
All right, I'm going
So
to
at the-
interrupt, but just for
Yeah.
a second, Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sorry. This is the 538-544 Nassau Street application.
Yeah, it's all gonna tie in, I promise.
Okay, all right.
It's literally down the street. It's literally like 2
All right,
blocks
so you
down
only
the
have
street.
3 minutes then.
Okay. So let's just move on to that one then. So now, you guys are approving a 2 6-story building on Nassau, which is obnoxious inside. It obstructs the view of all the homes from in front of it. People that have bought their homes with the view of the mountain, I'm telling you, because you guys did the same thing with Mountain View and Scotland Road, which begs the question if the planning board is even considering how it impacts the residents and the current homeowners. I didn't hear anybody talk about how this is going to benefit me, except probably that they're going to get a tax abatement, increase my taxes. There's only one other building, and I looked around, that is as big as what you guys are proposing, and it stands out like a sore thumb, and it doesn't fit it. So are we using that as the basis to say, okay, because there's already one building there, let's go add another 2 big buildings? I'm just trying to understand. So why does this have to be another apartment building? Why not a commercial or a community space? Why not multiple single family homes? It seems the owners are just for profit at the expense of the quality of our lifestyle. This doesn't even talk about the dangerous situation on Scotland Road where 2 cars were totaled in literally less than a few months, like just from the traffic. And then you're also saying that you're going to allow parking. So was there a traffic study done? Do you guys not take the residents' concerns into consideration, or is it all business? This doesn't align with the Orange redevelopment plan, and anyone who says that it does align is not familiar with the plan and has not read it thoroughly, because it does not align. So everyone that's been saying that, it gets a little bit frustrating because I've read it. Has the developer done an environmental impact assessment to figure out, the flood risk or the damage or and how the water would run? And you guys said you're gonna have a parking lot. How are residents gonna want to move knowing it's a flood zone and it could damage their their cars? That doesn't make sense to me. So could it be possible that we don't have any parking in this area? I mean, there's a train station, and as you guys say, traffic studies, if one was done, I'm pretty sure that they would say it's dangerous. City council told us that um the city council will tell us that the apartments are intended to benefit the current homeowners too. And if we don't like something, that it's not up to them to push the project, that it's you guys. They say the people responsible for all these development projects are the planning board. These meetings are recorded. That is something that is not a lie. So if we need a change or we want something different, they say to come to you guys. So I'm here telling you guys that this building of 2 stories doesn't make sense. How does the addition of these just include the quality of life? This literally the amount of noise. I've lived here for 6 years, and for the past 4 years, it's been nonstop noise, vibrations, debris. Have you guys considered how this much construction you've approved between Mountain View, Scotland Road, and now Nassau, there's literally 4 different apartment buildings that you guys have approved. How does that make sense to homeowners and people living here? I work from home. It is loud from 8 a.m., sometimes 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So how does that align with approving all these huge projects that are going to take more probably years to finish? Is there a specific plan in place to ensure that these new development addresses these issues? And are there measures being considered to improve conditions for current residents as the neighborhood grows as a result of all these apartments that you guys are approving? And members, since you will be the key part of pushing this project through, I would appreciate any insight into how this development specifically is being planned with the needs of current residents in mind when you vote tonight and the very real concerns I just mentioned. Help me understand what makes this make sense. What makes this make sense for this community when everyone has been telling you we don't want any more apartment buildings. The construction is just too much. I don't know how many more years I'm supposed to live here with noise. Literally, they're just about to finish this building right here in the corner, and now you're telling me that you're gonna approve 2 6-story buildings, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is they're asking for a variance. Why do we need to give it to them?
All right, Ms. Rodriguez, your time is up. Thank you. And I'm going to give Attorney Jenkins, if you want an opportunity to address.
So, I won't go through each point that's been raised other than with regard to the environmental, in stormwater, that's what we have, as but one example, have done extensive review to ensure that this is a workable site, that it is not exacerbating it, that this, again, that's what Mr. El Musi's testimony was largely about, not only this evening, but extensively when we first appeared before the board on that. So that question, I would hope, has been sufficiently answered in that there's been an environmental, the impact environmentally on this, particularly with regard to the flooding questions that have been raised, have been fully addressed.
So the assessment was done.
Pardon me, Ms. Rodriguez, your time is up, so please just.
Right. And again, not only is it done, but that's been submitted and it's part of the record. As Mr. Cahalan has also acknowledged that, he's unfortunately had to sit through and read through all our 200+ pages with regard to that. And then with regard to this board's obligation, it's important to understand that this is a permitted use. This board is looking at whether it works, particularly from the environmental, particularly from the height, but we are substantially compliant with the redevelopment and plan that is in place for this particular location. So this is not an aberration of zoning. This is actually consistent with zoning generally and what the city has asked to be placed here. Again, in terms of height, that's permitted. We're allowed the 6 stories.
All right, next up, I see Jeff Lambert Wingfield.
Yes.
Yes, Chairman, thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Excuse me, Mr. Wingfield, can you turn your camera on,
Yeah,
please?
there we go. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I just have one general question.
Before you get started, just your name
where you going?
and address.
My name is Jeff Lambert Wingfield. I reside at 538 Nassau Street, the only house that sits on Nassau Street between South Jefferson and Scotland Road, and my home will be directly impacted by this proposal. I'm just going to ask one question. Being someone who was born and raised, graduated from high school here, I'm the only one in my immediate family who was able to purchase a house and retain a house and develop wealth with property here in the city of Orange. Now, with this project being proposed, maybe approved, will that allow anyone like me who owns property invest in this new development and or own a unit in this development, maintaining my development and financial security here in the city of Orange? That's my question.
Again, I'll open up to Mr. Attorney Jenkins, if you'd like to address it.
So in terms of they'll put it this way, this is a project and this is a development that is available to anyone. So the answer to Mr. Wingfield's question is yes. If he wished to reside here, take one of the apartments, he's more than welcome. It is not being proposed as condos, so we're not talking an ownership interest in that. But these are rental units that are available to anybody that would want to avail themselves of that.
Just a quick note, that would be an investment. That's rental, paying rent to an outside entity rather than owning in your own town in which they reside. That's it. Thank you for your answer.
Next up, I see Rachel Tennant.
Yes, Rachel Tennant, 461 Waverly Place. I guess Mr. Lambert, he could sell his property. He'll make money that way, because I'm sure they'll give him a good piece of change. But my concern is if the transformer is on the ground floor, wouldn't it get flooded? And if it gets flooded, would the building lose power? And I don't know if the board remembers or anyone remembers that there's a similar project on Morrow and Jefferson, 2 buildings connected by a sky bridge. This came before the planning board. A much larger project, same concept, 2 buildings connected. Seems like you're turning this area into Starrett City, if you know Brooklyn, East New York. You're turning it into, just one big project. It's separate owners, but in totality, it's going to be a huge project. Just with, like I said, just with different owners. You're going to overwhelm the valley. And in terms of the stormwater collection, can someone explain when it's collected? Is it slowly drained into the streets, or how does this work? Because when it's cold, I'm assuming it might freeze, or I'm not sure how that works. And what was the other thing? Yeah, again, I think this additional project connected with the Morrow Street project, which is a stone throw away from this one, will definitely overwhelm the valley. So I think the board needs to think about that. And I used to party in the valley. This was back in the early 80s. Sometimes we couldn't even go to any parties or get together because it was flooded so badly. But I could say in recent years, it has not been that bad. But now with all these buildings, a lot of asphalt, concrete covering the ground, where's this water going to go? Okay, you guys said some groundwater collection system. Again, where is this water going to go? You collect it, you drain it out. What happens to it? It doesn't evaporate, that's for sure. So I think this board needs to think about what you already passed with the Morrow Street project. That's about, 300 units, 400 units? That's ridiculous. Thank you.
Again, Attorney Jenkins, would you like to, or one of your professionals address?
Yeah, if I can ask Mr. El Musi to address that question.
Absolutely. I'll start with the transformers. So the transformers are waterproof and floodproof. They're designed, they go in different configurations. Some of them are even installed within sidewalks and below ground. And so they usually have open grates. So some of these systems, the PCNG obviously understands the need that they need to be weather resistant and ensure that that they don't get damaged. That being said, most of these residential buildings also include a generator during power outages, whether it's specific to the site or generally to the entire population. These buildings will have temporary power that will function for emergency lighting, emergency access, such as elevators and other life safety features within the building. Specifically to the storm system, and thank you for your question. I should have expanded on that as well. The intent of the stormwater vault is simply to gather during large storm events. What it does is it gathers the roof runoff, captures it from the roof, and then conveys it into this storm vault. The storm vault is equipped with a control outlet system. That controls the outlet system has orifices at its base, and what it does is it essentially reduces, captures most of that water, but slowly discharges it into the city sewer system. So the intent is that during peak storm events, such as a flood event or other major storm, heavy storm events, what ends up happening is we experience that flooding when the actual storm sewer is just inundated and can no longer accept flow, whether it's within the site directly or upstream stormwater that traverses South Jefferson. So what these storm systems are designed to do is just capture that water and slowly release it to the city system to essentially alleviate its contribution to the storm sewer system. So it's not designed to retain that water as a long-term pooling system. It's really designed to alleviate peak storm events and slowly discharge post those storm events when the sewer system goes back to its the ability to capture the runoff from this site. So most of these storm systems are designed to essentially completely empty out within 72 hours. That's a DEP regulation, and we design these based on 2-year, 10-year, 100-year storm events. And then we've also the DEP recently changed over the last less than a year, I would say, have changed the regulations to require us to add an extra 25% for future event proofing. So they are trying to be forward thinking and saying, we've set these standards, but now we want an extra 25% capacity to ensure that that we meet future larger storm events. Thank you.
Next up, I see Carolina, and forgive me, Karwatz.
Close enough. Good evening. Carolina Carvash. I live at 475 South Jefferson Street. I have 2 questions. Can somebody please provide a timeline of, I guess, when you plan on like starting this project? We've been seeing some of the houses already demolished behind libraries. So I wonder, if you could just give us some kind of time frame on when the rest will be gone and when do you plan to start on that? And the second question, if you could please repeat how many parking spots, how many units are in both buildings, and how many parking spots will you be providing? Because I understand not every tenant, I guess, will be given a parking spot. If you could, repeat that, please.
Are those your only questions?
Yes.
Ms. Karwatz? Okay, thank you. Attorney Jenkins?
So, and I can let either Mr. D'Augusto or Lucy chime in, but no, it's actually the opposite. We're providing parking spaces for all of the residents. So that is sufficiently captured on site. The timing of the any construction and anything is going to be dependent at least in the first stage. Once we get past this board, is also the DEP requirements and the DEP review. I cannot say because it's DEP and they, dance to their own drum as to when they would finalize their review. But that's the next step. But I mean, we would imagine that it would be mid let's say mid-2026. And one other thing is that as part of this overall project and project review, there's going to be separate an agreement with the city, a redevelopers agreement that's going to be put in place, and that document itself will actually have a specific schedule as to when the construction is generally supposed to start and when it's supposed to be completed.
And then Reggie, I can jump in on the units and parking count.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So the unit count between the two buildings is 135 units. And the parking proposed right now is 141 regular stalls with an additional 15 tandem stalls. So the 15 are essentially would be allocated to the same units. That would be two vehicles per stall, but otherwise there'll be a surplus of a 1-to-1 ratio. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I see Kate Dodd.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for holding this meeting, and thank you to everyone who's worked to make this project better than it was originally. I have a number of questions.
Ms. Dodd, I'm
I
sorry.
live-
Can you
Kate
give-
Dodd at 475 South Jefferson Street, and I am the president of the HOA board for this building. So I'm speaking for myself, but also representing the 32 residential units that are directly across the street from this development. Okay.
Thank you.
And I have a number of questions. So I'm hoping that all of them will be answered, even if I have to say all of them without waiting for answers in between. I assume that's the proper way to do things.
That is correct.
And they are not in a particular order, but I'll start with what has been done in terms of the historic fill that is being exposed during excavation. I know that for our building, we're not allowed to disturb the cap, namely the asphalt and concrete on our site, because that will expose historic fill, which then has to be tested and has to go through the LSRP process. Has that been done, and what have you discovered? How do you plan to cap the site? My next question is that I'd like to know why it's required for you to have a height waiver. Why are you going 6 feet over what is allowed for that site? I'd like to know, and this is a big one, based on where you have the ramp that goes into your parking garage, it looks like it empties out directly across the street from the ramp that goes down to the basement of our building. We had a very terrible experience during Hurricane Ida that took years for us to repair the damage that was done when our building was flooded. My car was totaled. Many residents in our building had a lot of financial damage, and were not able to get help from FEMA or any other government entity. Right now, you may be capturing some of your roof water, but I see nothing about that long ramp, which will shoot water directly down our ramp and into our basement. What are you going to do to keep that from happening? I would like to know when you are, whether you're putting water into the city system over a 72-hour period, as you mentioned the storm vaults will do, or if it's going faster during a non-storm event. What have you and what has the city done to make sure that the pipes that are going to be filled with this water are adequate to take that? It's one thing for you to store the water, but does the city have a way of processing that water once it happens? I would like to know why maybe you're showing this and you just haven't pointed it out yet, but the only landscaping I see is kind of a flower box of some sort. I know at the PSE&G switching station, the new switching station, they put a very small planter on the corner. Is that what we should be expecting? Where are the street trees? This area has virtually no green areas. And with the imposing facades of the buildings that you're putting up, we're now not going to have access to look at the trees that are far away as well. And I'm wondering why you do have some, it looks like some sort of projection cantilever extension on the corners of buildings A and B that jut out onto the street, maybe at the third or fourth floor level. I'm not quite sure where that was happening. So if you could answer some of those, that would be terrific. And then the biggest question I have, and it's one that Denise raised as well, and that I have not heard you address, including in the answer to her question, and that is, if you change your point of view about this project and you look for a minute not at how much can we fit into this space, what profit can we make, how many units can we bring to this neighborhood, and instead you look at what is it like to live in this neighborhood. And when we ask for waivers and essentially ask to take public space for free, what are we giving the public? And I have not heard what you are giving the public. I am not aware of any amenities that you are offering the neighborhood. I am aware that there will be a tremendous increase, not only in traffic and noise, but what are you doing about the problem of pet waste, for instance? What are you doing about the problem of continuous sound of garbage trucks? They're going to have to go in and out of this large of a unit. I'm not hearing anyone addressing those issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Dodd.
I also have here Tom
Nope,
Nussbaum.
that's time. That's time.
That was 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he'll do separate 3 minutes.
Who?
Can I speak?
Or you want to have them answer me first?
I'm
I
not sure
didn't.
if I'm
Okay.
recognized.
What is your name and your address?
My name is Tom Nussbaum. I also reside at 475 South Jefferson. I apologize. I have my computer open, but I have no camera on my computer. That's why I'm using Kate Dodd's. I just want to, I have two questions. One relates certainly to what Kate asked, which is you showed a rendering that has a number of trees in the rendering of the buildings when you're looking at it from the street. And yet when I look at the plan, I don't see those trees. I just am not seeing them. I don't know if they're there or not, but the rendering shows a number of street trees in front of the buildings, and I'm not seeing them in the plan, so I would like to see where they are in the plan. The other question I have regarding the parking is I understand what you've already said about the number of stalls, 141, but I'm wondering, it's my understanding that that's actually less than is what is required. And I'm wondering why, if that is the case, why are there less parking spaces than what are required by the zoning? Our parking here is you know, as you know, there are plenty of tenants who need parking, but the street parking here is very limited. And there's going to be a lot of more pressure on parking as more developments go up around the neighborhood. And so we're very concerned about the number of parking spaces and if they meet the zoning requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nussbaum. And I'm going to remind you to put your hand down in the other.
Thank you. Thank you. I will.
Attorney Jenkins.
Okay. And I'm going to tag team our professionals here, but just one thing with regard to the parking, as we've stated, we are compliant with them. So we're not asking for anything less. So I just want to reinforce that. Secondly, with regard to the question of the street trees, I believe we can, if there's some shown, we can work with definitely with the board and the board's planner to provide street trees on there. I believe we had intended that. Those can be shown. So, you know, we're mindful of that as well. So that is coming. With regard to the I'm going to go in reverse order. Mr. Musi, if you would, if you could just, and you've gone in great detail with regard to the flooding, but you heard the question about is water coming, you know, come rushing out into adjacent properties, and also the environmental, are we capping anything, not capping? If you could just go through those and answer those as best to your ability.
Mr. Musi, before you begin, I'm going to ask Kate Dodd if you could please mute yourself. Thank you. You can proceed, Mr. Elmosy.
Thank you. So I will start off by discussing the building heights and specifically the extra 6 feet. That is a direct correlation with the flood concerns that we're trying to address here. So to put it simply, we are compliant in terms of number of stories, which is 6 stories, but we've essentially raising this building 6 feet above ground to meet the EP requirements. This isn't something that we've necessarily wanted to achieve. What we're really looking to do here is really be able to provide the lobby as well as the parking area to be above that flood hazard elevation. That's a specific requirement. As I mentioned, we're going from elevation 162, 63 on the streets, and we're proposing the ground floor at elevation 176. So that's almost a 12 to 13 foot rise, and that is just a direct correlation to that. Second point was the ramp with the potential runoff towards your basement parking entry. So I'm not sure if I conveyed this properly or not, but that ramp is inside the building, so it should not be experiencing any potential runoff coming down that ramp. All of the runoff is getting captured at the roof via roof drains and directly connected into our storm system. So there should not be there should be little to no runoff coming out of this building. It's basically just facade runoff that would be conveyed out to the streets, but that and potentially the 5-foot setback areas. There was a question about whether the city conveyance. So as I mentioned during my testimony, there's a 7-foot storm sewer that's connected to the culvert up on South Jefferson. That is where we're connecting our system. So on a small storm event, which is essentially a 2-year storm, 10-year storm, these are the kind of storms that we've been accustomed to now seeing a lot more frequently. That 7-foot storm sewer should be able to convey the runoff. We are still capturing some of that runoff in our system and slowly letting it discharge into the storm sewer. So essentially, what we're proposing now, even with the new building, is a net reduction as to the contribution of this site to that storm sewer during any storm event, whether it's the daily storm events, small rain events, all the way up to a 100-year storm and a flood event. So all runoff has to go through that storm system. It gets captured in the storm system and then gets released at a much slower rate than if it was just a roof leader connecting straight out, or if it was, as it currently is, a giant parking lot that just sheet flows right out onto South Jefferson and into those inlets. The street trees, I think Attorney Jenkins kind of pointed to that. We're more than happy to work with the association as well as with the board professionals to ensure that we are providing adequate street trees, and we'll locate them so that they provide adequate shade. In terms of garbage pickup and drop off, that could be done inside the building as well. We have enough ceiling height to provide that kind of service, as well as simply it's one collection point, and it will be coordinated. The super will coordinate the trash with the trash pickup. So this is not a situation where every tenant is solely responsible to take out their trash, right? Anything down that line. And then I think the last point was their parking ratio. So specifically to the Central Valley redevelopment plan, the parking requirement is a 1-to-1, so 1 unit, 1 parking spot. And as I mentioned, we're proposing 156 with the tandem parking, where only 135 is required. There are credits for EV parking that we did not even account for in this math. So essentially, for every EV parking spot that we propose, the state allows us to reduce a single parking spot. We did not propose that math in this equation. This is actual physical spots available between both sites. And then obviously this development is transit oriented. There's a train station nearby. So the idea is to encourage, and I think Mr. Hazel has also mentioned to this, we're trying to encourage pedestrian traffic here as opposed to essentially having 2 vehicles per unit and having 2 vehicles drive in and out of this site at all times. I think I touched upon everything.
Thank you. I
Thank
didn't
you
hear
very
an
much.
answer to
No,
the
come on, Ms. Dodd, please allow them to complete, finish answering all your questions, please. Thank you. Attorney Jenkins?
Okay. And I actually just want to, do we have, to your knowledge, any environmental concern? with regard to this beyond the stormwater?
As far as I'm aware, I am not. But if there is any environmental concerns, obviously they will be addressed to meet the DEP requirements, and the developer will take on that scope of work.
Right. Thank you.
And one of the questions that was asked, I think 3 times already, was what is the community gaining? Are you offering the community anything?
From an engineering perspective, I
Yeah.
think the key thing, and I keep alluding to this, which I know that seems mundane, but is a significant impact, is the stormwater management. This is this is known to be a flood zone, a flood prone area, and the intent of this design will allow, from an engineering perspective, will allow us to control these 2 specific sites which are combined a little over an acre of eliminating that runoff that we're seeing coming down not Nassau streets through these 2 parking areas, and really contributing to the flood concerns here.
Thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, just generally to that point, there is, I mean, that question actually goes beyond planning with regard to this discrete site. The overall argument is this: there is a redevelopment plan in place. The redevelopment plan that was put in place was because there was a study done by the city that says something needs to happen here. Something different needs to happen. There needs to be a spur in redevelopment. There also needs to be a spur in taking advantage of the asset that the city has, which is its transit availability. So this is, again, this is in its own way a spur to the overall economic vitality of the city, which has been recognized by the governing body. Also, I'll touch upon one question that was made before, that, oh, now all our taxes are going up. Actually, to the contrary. With the developer coming in, and if there were a pilot, or if there weren't a pilot, the city ultimately is going to be getting more taxation than if this area were allowed to lay fallow, and allowed to remain undeveloped in its own way. So, although it is not a planning concern for this board, for the community, it should be noted that there is going to be definitely an economic and direct tax infusion by a development such as this. This is not coming in for free. They're not getting anything for free. They're not acquiring the land for free.
All right, with that, before we can continue, I must take a recess. We're having a technical difficulty, and right now we have not met quorum. So we have to pause until we can get these technical difficulties. Nope, Madam Secretary?
Just 1 second, let me see. You're just trying to join. Mayor Warren, do you hear us?
I can hear you.
I see
Okay,
him.
great.
Okay, then we can
All right.
proceed.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Quelly Campbell.
Hi, good evening. Quayle Campbell, 55 Randolph Place in the Valley. So I have a couple of questions. One, I wanted to kind of go back to the number of parking spots, and I thought I heard Mr. Musi say that a certain percentage of them were for compact cars. Can you clarify of the number that's proposed, how many of them are compact cars? And then also, can you expand upon, you said you were encouraging, walking and hopefully, this is another part of my question, other means of transportation. Can you clarify and talk about how you're encouraging that? Like, are you tying it to maybe the application process for apartments? Are you encouraging people who will, potentially come and rent your apartments to come with compact cars, come without cars potentially? Do you have micromobility option set up. I didn't hear it. I don't know if it was proposed before. Do you have bike infrastructure that you're going to have available? So I'd like to hear more about that. The second thing that I'd like to hear about is whether or not there's a community benefit agreement tied to this particular project, and has the developer met with the community? And so I did hear Mr. Jenkins talk about, the economic part of things or whatever. But I think, it's very integral for the developer to know where he's building, who he's building amongst, what are the current fields, what are the current needs, what is the current, issues within the community, so that he can build something that is amenable to the community. So that's the second thing. And then the last thing is the school. Has anybody done an impact to the schools? And I know we always say, oh no, our schools are not overcrowded, but the neighborhood school for that area is Forest Street. And this, a couple of days ago, I seen that Forest Street was spilling over to an annex in one of the Catholic schools on Valley Street. So if there's a spillover already, and you guys are expecting additional families, because you do have 2-bedroom apartments that you will be marketing, have you done some kind of impact study to where these kids are going to go to school, and whether or not you have the capacity to host and educate them? And so I'll stop there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And, I would eventually like to introduce the developer and have her sworn in, but I would say overall, to Ms. Campbell's actually, very good points, is we're absolutely looking to sit and meet with the residents. And I think that's already set up or to be set up. So we're not trying to come in here in a completely blind, heavy-handed way. It's at the end of the day trying to make this, and you might say this is counterintuitive and nobody wants to believe us, but we're trying to come in a harmonious way. But you are absolutely correct in asking, is that happening? And yes, it is. With regard to the schools, that is actually built into, again, the city's calculus in terms of allowing the proposed density that is allowed for here. The Mr. Omusi may be able to speak or confirm as necessary with regard to other modes of transportation, but yes, we are inserting, for example, bike racks. We are encouraging the use of transit simply by dint of the fact that it's located within convenient access to that public transportation. And also, when people are moving in, there is an element of self-selection to say that if, and as Mr. Omusi said, the parking is going to be designated. If I am coming in and I have, 14 SUVs and I know that I'm only going to get one site, parking space, I'm not moving here. So the overall, that is the legal response to that. But Shirley, are you there, Mr. Chairman, if I may? Could I have Shirley Del Rosario recognized?
Where is Shirley on the scene?
She's in the corner of my screen.
All right, I'll be over there to look at your screen in a minute. Just ask Shirley to please raise her hand, and Attorney Hawkins.
Vice Chair.
There we go.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give today before the board is the truth?
Yes, I swear.
Thank you.
All right.
I can talk.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time, board. Thank you, everyone, for coming forward today and understanding our project. My name is Shirley Del Rosario. I'm part of the owner for Vita Capital.
We own, operate long-term our developments. So everything we take and account for when designing these buildings, it's with quality, as we do manage the buildings 10 to 15 years. As far as your question, we do consider bike racks to promote walkability and less use of cars. In our other buildings, we have bike racks, and we see they're actually used more, and we've never actually fully 100%ed parking spots in general. Usually, we have about 85 to 90% occupancy in our parkings. And as far as community benefits, we are working with the city within the next couple of weeks, months, for community benefits, but nothing's finalized right now. And I'm also working with the owners of Libretti's to potentially do a community meeting there.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, I see Christie's iPhone. I know that's not your last name, Christy, so I'm going to ask that you state your name and address, please, after you unmute.
Sorry about that. And thanks everybody. I'm Christy Morris. I live at 475 South Jefferson, and
I'm sorry, Christy, can you repeat your last name, please?
Morse, Morse. And I'm
And
at 475 South Jefferson. So this development with all of its parking spaces, has there been a traffic impact study done? Because this is surely going to impact the traffic in the area. Like, the volume is going to be significant. Have we discussed, are there going to be traffic lights added, or what's going to happen with all this new traffic?
And is that your only question?
We can start there, yeah.
No, but I'm going to give you 3 minutes to ask and everything that you need to ask. And
Okay,
then
my other question is about your planting. The planting's supposed to be along South Jefferson, is that correct? If that's correct, you're gonna have 2 6-story buildings on either side of it, and your gardens will get no light. So has anybody thought of that? And I'm just wondering what exactly this is doing for our community, because it does not seem like a lot. And I'm also curious what other developments these developers have implemented in other communities, and how did they go? That's it.
Thank you, Christy. Attorney Jenkins.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think that with regard to the traffic study, we already have one in the works, and as done, in other applications, as a condition of approval, that traffic study can be submitted to the city, as well as, and to the extent that there is anything called for in terms of working with the city with regard to lighting, with regard to stripe or anything like that, that would absolutely be implemented. Generally speaking, it's not required, but again, we're already moving forward towards that.
So you're moving forward towards a traffic impact study?
Correct.
Again, Ms. Morris, you've asked your question, so I'm going to give you ask that you.
Well,
mute
he's not
yourself.
addressing.
I'm going to ask that you mute yourself so that Attorney Jenkins and or one of his experts can answer the other questions.
Please address thresholds, please. Thank you.
Attorney Jenkins.
So to be clear, we will submit a traffic study. Yes.
there was questions regarding other developments that this developer has established, and how we're concerned about how those developments have gone, as well as the livelihood of the trees or plantings, the garden that you will have in place in between the two six-story buildings.
So Shirley, would you
Yeah.
like
Hello?
to answer with regard to the other properties? And then if either you or Anthony wants to speak to, any of the landscaping.
Yeah, so we have developments currently operating in Jersey City, Bayonne, and East Orange. Anthony, if you want to, I guess, shed some light on the lighting part, on the
I
daylight.
saw what you did there.
Yes, I mean, the right of ways on both street frontages are over 40 feet. On Nassau, it's nearly 50. There's the sun path on both frontages there will see plenty of daylight. Tall growth shrubs are not what's intended in our landscaping bed. It's mostly going to be mulch, short, lower height shrubbery. And then the street trees will propagate along close to the curb, and they'll see even greater sunlight along those frontages.
Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing. We are owners and operators, so I just want to reiterate that when we are managing these buildings, we do build communities within the buildings as well. And we make sure that we manage the properties very well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, I see Sharnita Johnson.
Yes, Sharnita Johnson, 475 South Jefferson Street. I think that I agree with all of my neighbors. This project appears to be out of scale and context with this neighborhood. Just because you can build 6 stories doesn't mean that you have to build 6 stories. It would have been really important and respectful for the developers and the city to have talked with the residents before dropping a design on us. And a traffic study seems like it would have been a precursor. So we live here and we know what the traffic is like. And we know if you bring 130 more people in cars, that the traffic is going to be unbearable. I couldn't even turn left on Scotland Road this morning. I had to do a complete right turn just to get down to Central Avenue. But I do have a question. The question is, of the 135 parking spaces in this development, how many of them are free to the residents, or do they have to pay additional costs to park in their development?
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
So I just on that, I would say, Mr. Chairman, that I actually think that's regulated by the city's own ordinance.
Attorney Jenkins, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute, please. I'm going to ask that everyone please stop with the gestures. It's not helping. So if you would please stop. Thank you. Attorney Jenkins.
Well, no, so I'm saying that I think that's regulated by the city's own ordinance as to having to include the charges. So we will abide by the whatever the appropriate legislation is in place. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I do recall having appeared before this board a number of times that has already been addressed on that level.
So according to the ordinance, the parking is 1-to-1, is a 1 resident to a parking space, or 1 unit to a parking space.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That wasn't my question. My question was, is it free? If I rent an apartment, do I have to pay extra to park my car in the development?
No, so, and I'm sorry, to be clear, I believe the ordinance requires that it be included, the price be included in the rent. So there's not a separate charge.
Thank you.
Next, I see David Freeman.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for making this meeting available to our residents. David Freeman, 475 South Jefferson Street. I would just argue that no longer is there good faith by the community and the residents here for any planning or decisions made by city council, by the members of zoning committees, even the mayor and such things. These decisions are already made. The development is here. The community is never consulted. I would also say, Mr. Jenkins, you don't want to come into this neighborhood heavy-handed. 135 unit building is two heavy hands coming into this community. So I understand the developer wants to play nice in a phone call like this. We're community oriented, but the willful ignorance, Mr. Jenkins, you know, most of it does not lie on your shoulders. It is the responsibility and lies on the shoulders of our very city council members and our mayor, who are supposed to look out for the needs and the frustrations of the community members and tax-paying owners who live here. Too many buildings are going up with renters who don't really want to care to invest or mind themselves about the needs of our community. Far too long, the Highland train station is all but a dilapidated shelter. All for too long, the sewage systems are being overrun. Far and too long, instead of promised trees, we're getting more and more sidewalks. So I would just say shame on everyone here responsible for continuing to overdevelop this Valley and Orange community. What are you doing to make sure that the excrement of 135 plus families is going into a sewer system that can manage it? What are you doing to ensure that 200 cars idling in the streets is not increasing the asthma rates for our school children? What are you doing to ensure safely lit regular service to our train station? This is not a community conversation that is taking any of these concerns seriously. It is very clear that all these decisions have been made. And I would say that no longer is there good faith in the parties that have to benefit financially and egotistically for these projects. So please, what are you doing to ensure air quality, safety for our children and our seniors? What are you doing to make sure our sewer systems are upgraded? And what are you doing to make sure that our transportation that is just a step away from the door is actually servicing more than 3 direct trains a day? Because as a commuter into New York City, I see the frustrated commuters who are frustrated every morning by the New Jersey transit system. So be careful what you promise to these community residents, because we deserve more. We live here. We are taxpayers. We're human beings, and our safety and security and investment should come first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Attorney Jenkins. Attorney Jenkins, you
I'm
need
sorry,
to-
I was saying, I think that was more of a statement than an actual question to this
Sewer
board.
system, transportation, and air quality. How are you planning on addressing those? Please answer the question.
So, however, that by the design, it doesn't just get plopped down and operate. With in collaboration with the engineers here, in collaboration with the city's engineers, they have to ensure and make sure that the piping, the sewers are adequate. Also, you said that, Mr. Freeman mentioned that the responsibility of the taxpayers and the obligation to the taxpayers. This developer is going to be a taxpayer as well. And it's interesting that it would be in their best interest and looking to have taxes go towards an advocacy for the improvement of the transit system, for the improvement of the infrastructure, in the improvement of anything that is directly benefiting not only the particular residents, but indirectly to the people surrounding. And again, first and foremost, like people, anybody else who's moving in, they are going to be taxpayers. And that is going to be a substantial increase than what we even have right now.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to close public portion of this application.
So moved.
You have a motion from Member
to close
Latour,
public portion.
and then we're going to accept that as a second from Vice Chair Jones. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye or raise your hand. Is there anyone that is opposed to closing the public portion of this application? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. Attorney Jenkins, I would give you an opportunity to close.
Well, thank you very much. And I won't be too long, but there are the simple fact and direct fact is this, and not in a callous way, but it's the fact that this is a permitted use in this zone. That this use has been designed not only in it has to be designed in accordance with the zoning that's been implemented through the redevelopment plan. And it's been recognized, I believe, by this board, it's been recognized by its professionals that this redeveloper has made, my words, a Herculean effort to work within that and to bring to the city a development that was intended by this plan, a development that is hopefully a revitalization to this area. It's a redevelopment that is going to be a spur to the local redevelop, to the economics of the neighborhood itself, to the city generally. It is hopeful that in the spirit of if they build it, they will come. Well, if you have an increased, and this follows, if you have an increased population demanding the services of mass transit, well, now the city is even better placed to speak with those parties to say, all right, we have people in need of additional trains. We have people in need of additional buses. But this is a contribution, and a positive contribution to the exact framework that the city has set up and the desires that the city itself has put in place. But at the end of the day, and there will be people who are going to disagree, but I hope this board sees that this development fits. This development is in accord with what has been demanded and structured, and without the substantial detriment to anything that has been raised. So weighing the balances of everything that's been presented, particularly considering that this is pretty much exactly what has been requested and designed for by the city, that this project should be approved. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. At this time, I will entertain a motion for this application.
Motion to approve preliminary and final major site plan for case number 24-11 Vita Capital LLC, 538 to 544 Nassau Street, with variances for on site A, minimum side yard setback of 0 feet where 5 feet is required, minimum rear yard setback of 0 feet where 10 feet is required, maximum building coverage of 89% where 80% is permitted, maximum building height of 81 feet where 75 feet is permitted. And site B, minimum side yard setback of 0 feet where 0 feet where 5 feet is required, minimum rear yard of 0 feet where 10 feet is required, maximum building coverage of 90% where 80% is permitted, maximum impervious coverage of 93% where 90% is permitted, and a design waiver on both sites for parking stall size of 8.5 by 18 where 9 by 20 is required. As a condition of approval, the applicant will comply with the recommendations of the board experts as detailed in the planner's report dated September 5th, 2025, and the engineer's report dated September 10th, 2025. Applicant will get approval of the city council for the bridge between the two buildings. Applicant will provide an alert system on the garage ingress and egress of each building to alert pedestrians of exiting vehicles from the garage. Applicant will obtain approval from the DEP on the plan. The applicant will work with board professionals on an adequate landscaping and lighting designed to complement the site and the neighborhood. Applicant will submit a traffic study prior to receiving any permits. Are you speaking, Chairman Holmes? I can't hear you.
Chairman, try it now.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Okay.
there we go. So we have a motion from Vice Chair Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Member Mobley. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary?
Now I'm the one. Okay. Member Mobley,
Yes.
Member Latour,
Yes.
Mayor Warren,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jones,
Yes.
Chairman Holmes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And look forward to doing business with you.
Thank
here
you.
in
And
the
again,
Orange
to you,
Township.
and again, to you as well as to the residents. Again, we do stand behind what was stated is we're trying to be good neighbors here and we hope to prove that. So, but thank you all very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, and everyone have a good night. Moving the agenda, is there any old business?
There are no old business on my end, Mr. Chairman.
I know I spoke about the review of the master plan. Mr. Hazel, is it the 28 that we're looking at that?
18, 20, yes, 10 years.
28, okay, because it's evident that that is something that we need to quickly review. 28 can't get here fast enough. Things have changed, in my opinion. Things have changed, and there's some adjustments that I feel need to be made. So I'm looking forward to that review of the master plan. Is there any other old business or unfinished business? Is there any new business?
There are no new business on my end, Mr. Chairman.
No one's raising their hand or making a fuss. So with that, I'll entertain a
Oh,
mercy.
thank you. Oh,
Vice Chair
thanks for the
Jones?
copy of the plan. Thanks for the copy of the planner. I always enjoy reading those when they come.
You're welcome.
Yes. Any other new business?
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion from Member Mobley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Member Latour. Are there any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Is there anyone that opposes adjourning this meeting at 9:54 p.m.? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Remember, we're meeting next week.
Please don't forget.
Thank you for reminding us.
Oh, boy.
Barrels of good news. There we go. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, Chair. Good night, everyone.